The film begins at a shipping dock with FBI agents John Crawford and Tom Lone tracking an infamous assassin named Rogue. The two are outnumbered, and Tom suggests somebody had tipped the Yakuza. They, however, decide to take a look into the dock, but things go sideways when Tom decides to proceed without waiting for backup. John is forced into the gunfight, but is cornered by the assassin Rogue, who shoots him in the arm. Tom, however, shoots Rogue violently, and he falls into the water before he can end John's life. The agents assume Rogue is dead.
You sure? Took one in the face.
During his sick leave, John calls Tom, informing him he would be late for the game. He inquires whether they have found out who blew the operation, but is informed the investigations have been inconclusive. He is also told that Rogue's body was not found even after searching the bay for 3 days.
We never found a body. They dragged that bay for 3 days.
They conclude he is fish food by then. Rogue was, however, not dead and tracked Tom to his home. He eliminates Tom and his family and sets the house on fire. John arrives with his family to find Tom's house engulfed in flames and surrounded by police and firefighters. John checks out the house and finds Rogue's signature titanium bullet shell, confirming that it was Rogue's revenge. 3 years later, Rogue resurfaces in the criminal underworld of San Francisco and eliminates members of the Japanese Yakuza in a club. John Crawford, under the FBI, goes to investigate the crime scene and comes across a titanium bullet shell similar to the one he'd seen 3 years earlier. He concludes that Rogue has returned and has switched sides from working with the Yakuza to working for Triad boss Chang. It is revealed that Shiro Yanagawa had assassinated Chang's family and sold every heirloom in Chang's dynasty to collectors' museums for over 30 years. All that was left was statuettes of 2 horses, and Shiro had been looking for a buyer. Rogue meets up with Li Chang, the Triad boss, at his mansion in Marin County to discuss the retrieval of his horses from Shiro.
My horses, they arrived.
Chang, however, admits he wonders how he could trust a man who betrays his master, but Rogue counters that he has no master, and thus has betrayed no one.
Though I have betrayed no one.
The two finalize their talk concerning the horses, and Chang introduces Rogue to the T brothers, who are to assist him with everything he needs. In Shiro's estate in Todai, Japan, Shiro is informed by his daughter that the horses had been shipped out and were to arrive in San Francisco that night. Shiro tells his daughter to return to San Francisco ahead of his arrival to oversee the sale of the horses, since he doesn't trust his people there. FBI agent John visits a man named Benny in an underground boxing arena who happens to be a friend. He had been looking into the guy who had been making the titanium bullets for Rogue and had information for John. He reveals that people associated with Rogue had been winding up dead. One plastic surgeon from Panama had accidentally injured himself with a kitchen knife, leading to his demise just a week before. While a week before that, another plastic surgeon associated with Rogue had been found mauled by alligators. He reveals the surgeons both specialized in facial reconstruction, and there was a third surgeon who had not shown up, and they assumed he was in hiding. Transport of cars containing the horses commences, but the delivery crew is not made aware of what they are actually delivering. The trip is, however, cut short when Shiro's men are stopped by police when arriving at the container yard. This comes as a surprise, as they had already talked to the captain and agreed to pay him for his troubles.
A huge mistake. We made arrangements.
The men are ordered to alight from their vehicles, and the police search them for firearms. One of the men says they work security and have licenses to carry firearms. He calls for the captain. Captain Andrews alights from his car and approaches the man, who recognizes him and asks why they have been stopped despite their arrangement. The captain asks to be given his money up front, which he proceeds to take from the man's pocket. He assures the man that they are good to proceed with their journey,
Here for a sec. Let me and the boys clear out.
only for them to be ambushed from behind by Wu, one of the T.I. brothers. It had been an ambush all along that Rogue had planned from the start. At Boss Chang's warehouse, the horses are revealed to have been hidden in the boot of one of the vehicles. The ambush at the container yard draws the attention of the FBI, and John Crawford goes to investigate the shooting. He analyzes the scene and concludes that a heist had taken place and something important had been transported.
Scoring something big. Whatever it was.
He also concludes, from the way the Yakuzas had been executed, the cops had to have been involved.
They thought they were cops.
Agent Crawford tracks down Captain Andrews, finds him in a restaurant, and confronts him on his association with Shiro Yanagawa. The captain reveals he and his family had been threatened by someone who worked for the Changs. As they head out of the restaurant with Captain Andrews, he is shot down by a sniper on the roof. The shooter, Rogue. A pursuit ensues, and Rogue tries to escape upon seeing Agent Crawford. Rogue, however, vanishes through the tight corridors and stairwells and vanishes into the street. John is left frustrated, standing in the middle of the street. Back at the Yakuza's headquarters in San Francisco, the Yakuza plot how they will make the Triads pay for stealing the horses, but Kira-san instructs them that they are to await further instructions from Shiro. Rogue reaches out to Agent Crawford and gives him the location, Warehouse 16, for the stolen shipment and asks he be there in an hour. The FBI agents raid the warehouse and find Rogue inside, unarmed. Having no evidence to arrest him, they leave after John has confronted him over the killing of his partner and his family.
Maybe you remember my partner. And on that day, you and I are gonna finish that.
Rogue, in his continued attempts to pit the Yakuza and the Triads against each other, ends up assassinating Joey T, one of the T brothers. Once the FBI gets to the crime scene and identifies the body, they divide themselves to monitor the Yakuza's and the Triads' territories, anticipating something was going to happen. Wu, under the influence of Rogue, decides to retaliate, and he and his men raid one of the Yakuza territories, Sahu Tea House. One of the FBI agents surveilling the area sees one of the Yakuza get eliminated by Wu, thus calling for Crawford and requesting for backup. Backup arrives, and the fight ends in a high-speed chase between Rogue and Agent Crawford, with Rogue driving off into the distance, leaving Crawford stranded again. Back at the Yakuza headquarters, Kira-san, Shiro Yanagawa's daughter, instructs Rogue to do one more thing: assassinate Chang's family and to deliver their heads.
He now asks one more thing of you. It's the order. There is no why.
Agent John Crawford decides to beef up security at his home in fear that Rogue might be after them. His wife confronts him that his obsession has put them in danger, and he feels sorry for him.
There are men with guns in my front yard.
John receives a phone call from Benny, informing him that he had found the third plastic surgeon in Tijuana, Mexico. The two go to Mexico, find the surgeon, and question him about Rogue. He tells them that the assassin had undergone many facial reconstructive surgeries, and he could only identify the last face he had constructed.
This is what I made him look like.
At the Triad's mansion, as Chang is planning to send his wife and daughter to a safe location, Rogue betrays him and finishes him off when Chang and Wu get into a gunfight. He ends up eliminating them both. He, however, does not harm the wife and daughter, and when questioned by the Yakuza's men on their status, he says they are dead.
Chang is dead.
He offers to go behead them, since it was his kill, but instead double-crosses the men and eliminates them. One of the FBI agents monitoring the mansion takes photos as Rogue betrays the Yakuza and sends them to Agent Crawford. Rogue returns to the house and escorts Chang's wife to the car, and she drives off with her daughter. Shiro Yanagawa flies into the country, and upon arrival at his offices at Yanagawa Motors, he is confronted by Agent Crawford for his ties to Rogue. He is shown the photos as Rogue assassinates his men, but claims to have never seen the man. Shiro is, however, now aware of Rogue's betrayal. The assassin goes to Yanagawa Motors to present the horses to Shiro, and Yanagawa is pleased to finally meet the man.
Face to face.
Rogue presents the horses to Yanagawa, and he informs him that he was aware that Rogue hadn't assassinated Chang's wife and daughter. He asks his men to escort him downstairs to execute him. Rogue proceeds downstairs, but outsmarts the men and fights them off. He ends up in a sword fight with Shiro. During the fight, Rogue reveals his identity. He informs Shiro that his rogue had not made it out alive the last time they met.
You're Tom Lone.
Shiro realizes who the man before him is, Tom Lone. He had changed his face and disguised his voice to get close to Shiro and get his revenge.
You should have left the wife.
Shiro, in his dying moments, reveals it was Agent Crawford who had led to the discovery of Tom Lone as an FBI agent. He blamed him for the death of Lone's family.
Crawford worked for me.
Agent Crawford receives a phone call from Rogue asking him to meet where they had met for the first time, at the docks. Crawford goes to the docks accompanied by Goey, an FBI agent, as a backup. He positions himself at a building across the docks with a sniper rifle. Agent Crawford meets Rogue at the port, and a hefty exchange of blows ensues. Rogue reveals his identity to Crawford during the fight, and he finds it hard to believe that was his best friend.
You're not him. You can't be.
Rogue tells him to look at his eyes, the one thing surgery couldn't change. He then reveals how he found out the identity of the man who betrayed him, John Crawford, his best friend. John, feeling guilty, reveals he had worked for Shiro and had found it difficult to get out. He tells Rogue how he had devoted himself to finding who murdered his family. Crawford begs Tom Lone for forgiveness, but Rogue responds that Tom was dead and all that remained was Rogue. Agent Crawford gets shot, and the movie ends with Rogue getting into his car and driving off into the distance.